What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Bridging the Gap here on the Jersey First TV network. I'm AJ Malillo.
I'm Stephen Rimbolo.
And as always, it's another Saturday in Jersey, and Bridging the Gap is releasing another episode here on Jersey First TV. And if you like the content, you can hit that notification bell, get all the Bridging the Gap content, all the Nader narrative content, all the Real Talk with Fernando content that you need and want over on Jersey First TV's YouTube channel. You can sign the pledge over at jerseyfirst.org or sign up for our newsletter if you're interested in more work that the great organization that Jersey First does. Over there, you can check us on demand anytime at onnj.com. Go to the on demand tag and Bridging the Gaps right there. That's all the places you can find us. But Steven, one place I know that they can find you is the Seaside Heights Boardwalk if they're trying to get some candy and or now maybe want to watch some guy make some ice cream. How was your week?
True.
Started up another gig over there. It's like you never stop.
It's true. Listen, I have one mode and it's called Go. Yeah, you know,
mode.
It is 100 or 0. That's what we operate at. Yeah, but I am back at the helm of my old gig making ice cream. Hand making in this insanely old family-made machine for Coors frozen custard on the boardwalk. It's a tremendous time. I'm doing it a few days a week and absolutely loving every second of it. So I'm just adding a little bit more to my already incredibly full plate because I'm the kind of guy that just can't have nothing to do. I've never been that guy. I never will be that guy. So my days are split between podcast research, managing a sweet shop, making ice cream, bodybuilding, having friends and also family. It's a lot, but we get it done. Not to mention packing up and moving in about less than a month at this point to an entire another state to start law school. So we got a lot of wheels turning. I'm like an 18-wheeler right now. They're just all turning at the same time. But I like to think that I wouldn't be in this position if I couldn't handle it. And I'm doing a really good job at managing my stress, managing my expectations, and making sure that I give each of those commitments the proper time and attention that they deserve to flourish and prosper to their fullest potential. So just a high caliber individual doing high caliber things, having a fun time along the way.
Look, you got to stretch yourself a little bit thin right now because you're coming up on a time that you're not going to really be able to do much of anything but one thing. So it's okay. Put your balls in as many baskets as you can right now because soon enough, you're only going to be shooting in one, right?
You're right. You're very right. And I'm going to shoot in that one like Michael Jordan, baby. I'm coming out.
Sure. I mean, the Orlando Magic might have to hire you. Let's just put it that way. You'll be down there in Orlando, be shooting baskets. No big deal.
They might. They'll be knocking on my door. You watch.
I wouldn't doubt it for the world. Wouldn't doubt it for the world. But that's good. Sounds like highly productive, albeit highly stressful. But you know, nothing new for Stephen Rimbolo.
Exactly. And it's only stressful if you're sweating. And I'm never sweating this. These are the things that I love to do. It is definitely hot. We have been on a hot run here in Jersey. I will say that. But these are things that I love to do. And the older I get and the more I entrench myself in these activities and commitments, the more I realize truth in the saying that if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. So I might have something to do, some obligation, something on the calendar in various different capacities and disciplines every single day, but I never feel dread towards any of these things. I never feel like, I got to go do this today because I love it all. And I always take a moment in the morning when I wake up and at night before I go to bed to just be grateful that I can fill my day with things that not only enrich me and the people around me and, put money in my pocket and fulfill me in other ways, but just grateful that I'm able to do so many things that I love. It's definitely a privilege, and practicing gratitude has been something that's made the stress levels far more manageable, because if I didn't, I'd be drowning right now.
Yeah, for sure. You're young and you're energetic. And so if there's ever a time to work a lot, it's like right now. So
it's right now, baby. That's what we do. Yeah, that's what we do. You're a guy that works a lot. You get it.
Some say. I was a long day today, actually, because I was working over at the district attorney's office, and then we had the district attorney v. intern softball game, and I was tasked with pitching the pitching duties, Now,
Ooh.
now let me say this: the interns did lose. We did lose 7-4. I was pitching a shutout for a little while though, and we were up 3-0 for a good amount of time. But then the sluggers came up. They batted around a little bit. But what are you going to do? Apparently, the district attorneys always beat the interns. It's like the interns never ever win. But last year they got crushed. It was like 20-2, and so we held our own. We did a pretty good job. I got an RBI single. I can't really complain too bad. I had a pretty good game. Talked a little trash, talked a little smack. No big deal.
I think that's got to be probably the best part of that experience is being able to look at your boss on the field and just know that the suits are off, the gloves are on, and you can say things that you might not get away with saying in the office.
For sure. Maybe you throw a little bit harder to the intern coordinator. No big deal or nothing.
I can't believe he gave up 7 runs, AJ. That's crazy.
I gave up. It was hot out. I was getting tired towards the end. I pitched 6 full innings. Like that's a lot.
Nobody in the pen?
Nobody in the pen. They were like, "You're doing too good of a job." I was like, "Come on," but okay.
That's crazy. My guy needs some relief. Some relief.
I was getting beat up out there, man. But what are you gonna do?
It's all right. It's all right. Nevertheless,
he persists. That's right. But what else? Yeah, and then we got a big event going on over at the place I work at. So this comes out on Saturday. On Sunday, if you find yourself in the Wilmington, Delaware area, there's a big event going on. It's called Crust for a Cause over at La Pizzeria Metro. One of our employees woke up one day and she was deaf in one ear, and she has no idea what happened. Nobody really knows. So she's getting a surgery. It's called a cochlear implant to restore hearing in that ear. Through a third, I don't want to say third party, but a device that they put into the ear and helps make you hear again. And so it's a big fundraiser going on Sunday. So I'll be working over there. If you're going to be guest bartenders, MC, games, lots and lots of fun. So if you find yourself over in Wilmington, Delaware, maybe you took a trip down to the Delaware beaches, stop on by La Pizzeria Metro. Should be a good time.
Sounds like a good time for a good cause. That's
right.
Incredibly scary, and great that the community's coming around to rally around somebody like that and give them the support to just elevate the status of life back to a status quo. That's really awesome.
Yeah, for sure. She raised a lot of money in a GoFundMe, and then she's trying to raise more at this event. Any proceeds, anything that's more than just what the surgery will cost, is going to a bigger organization and charity. So it's like all of the money is going to help out. So yeah, that's what's going on with me this week. Nothing super crazy. You can see I still got a little bit of that 4th of July color going, and I guess I was out all day, so I got a little bit of color on the face today.
Yeah, it's very nice.
There we go. That's what's up.
It is glowing.
Glowing. It's summertime, summertime. But anyway, we got some stories. Enough about this. We got some stories to talk about. And we teased this last week, but I think it's a good place to start for this week. And that is the city of Philadelphia is suing a primary distributor of what are called ghost guns. So the company's called Polymer 80, and there's another one called JSD Supplies. Polymer 80 is based out of Nevada, and basically they produce most of the ghost guns in the country. And so for those of you that don't know what a ghost gun is, what they do is they produce the handle piece and then just the bottom, so not like where the barrel sits in the gun, right? And then the actual firearm is like a little trigger, not the trigger, but like a little trigger where that actually produces the explosion and the gunpowder. So that's the firearm. So technically, they're not selling you a firearm. They're selling you the parts to make a firearm at home. So they sell you all of the parts without actually selling you a firearm. So that means they don't have to do any background checks. They don't have to, necessarily check for ID. So minors are getting their hands on these guns, but they're really easy to make at home, actual functioning firearms. So there's serial numbers on them. There's no background checks on them. So they're easy to get, and you can just get them online, and they'll send them anywhere in the country, or I guess anywhere in the world. So city of Philadelphia is saying, look, we have this epidemic of gun violence on our streets. And one of the biggest causes of that is these ghost guns. We don't have any serial numbers. We don't have any way to track them. You know, people that have felonies are getting these guns because they're not doing any background checks on these guns. And they're basically saying, look, Polymer 80, you are skirting the system. You're skirting the laws here. And that's not okay. So they're trying to get them to criminally investigated and then sued to stop this distribution of these guns. The Philadelphia Police Department confiscated 575 ghost guns while conducting criminal investigations in 2022 alone. So, wow. So Stephen, I wonder what your opinion is. Obviously, look, the Second Amendment's a big deal. Right. And people have the right to bear arms in the United States, in all 50 states. The question is, how should we regulate something like this? Definitionally, they are not selling firearms. They're selling firearm parts. Now, functionally, they're selling build your own firearms, right? Mm-hmm. They're selling you the product, and the whole pitch is you can make a gun at home. It's cheaper. It's easy. Albeit it's a little bit more dangerous. I probably wouldn't trust it. But
so let's maybe we could do a social experiment here. Maybe I'll create like an Amazon store, and on my Amazon store, I'll make sure that I put a crock pot, a bunch of nails, some wires and some circuitry, and I'll sell it as like a build your own kitchen device, and I'll see how quick the government has a problem with that, because I think that's functionally what this is. And the same way that we would go, I don't know if you're too familiar with the way that they apprehended the gentleman who committed the Boston Marathon bombing, but they were able to actually trace the purchases of a lot of these materials before those gentlemen arrived in Boston, and they had an idea of what was going on. These are people that were already on a watch list, and you know, you're buying certain things, and it's like, well, these are all the elements that we need to, you know, create a crockpot bomb. We should probably look in and see what these guys are up to. I think that there's no reason that we shouldn't be able to treat these guns the same way. I think that there's a reasonable national security concern that might warrant the government having access to records of individuals who have purchased these things in the past, because they are dangerous. They do skirt the law. And going out of your way to purchase one of these, I don't think is an innocent act. I think that manufacturing and distributing them is just as criminally evasive as purchasing one of them, because it is simply taking advantage of a loophole that exists. And unfortunately, at this point, it rests in the hands of our very slow-moving and highly unmotivated government to tackle this issue, which, like you said, that was a staggering number you mentioned, 500 and whatever the number might have been, ghost guns in the city of Philadelphia in 1 year alone.
Yeah, 575, excuse me, 575.
Yeah. So we're talking almost 600 guns, ghost guns, in a single year, in a single American city, coming from one, I would imagine, largely one distributor. I don't know about that.
Yeah, so it's coming from about 87% of those guns, according to this lawsuit, are from Polymer 80. So
yeah,
I would say I somewhat agree with what you're saying. Look, I think there should be serial numbers on these handles, right? We should be able to track these guns if they're used in crimes at the very least, right? You have the right to bear arms. You don't have the right to shoot somebody in cold blood or use it in criminal activity. Like, it's that simple, right? So there should be a way to track it. We shouldn't be allowing people who are persons not to possess, people that have committed felonies and violent felonies in the past, who aren't allowed to own guns. We shouldn't be allowing them to purchase anything in the way of making guns, right? So I have no problem with forcing them to do background checks on the people they're buying. We should also, make sure that the people buying these are of age to own a firearm. I don't think that those are too crazy of asks. Like, nobody is telling Polymer 80, like, you're not allowed to sell these at all. No, that's not the contention. If people want to build their own guns, kind of taking their own lives and limbs into their own hands, like, go right ahead. but you can't do it and try and pretend that you're not selling somebody a gun. Yeah, you're selling somebody the parts of a gun, but functionally, you're selling somebody a firearm. You're marketing it as making your own firearm.
That's my point with the whole, if I created an Amazon store that had the crock pot and the nails, I can pass it off as whatever I want to call it. Oh, it's not a firearm. It's not a gun. It's, you can do whatever you want with it. We suggest you might do X, Y, and Z, but hey, once it's yours, it's yours. We have nothing to do with it. And I think that's really, truthfully, I'm going to say scummy business. And I think that this business has to understand the implications of what they are doing. And that alone, to me, opens them up to a degree of liability, because on its face, there is no way that anybody who works for this company or is a material part of the actual manufacturing and distribution of these ghost guns can sit down and look somebody in the face, especially somebody in a lawsuit when you're being deposed or, sitting in front of a judge, however this goes, and say, well, we had no idea that they would hand up in the hands of people who weren't supposed to have guns. Nobody's going to buy that. I don't care what kind of jury you cherry pick. Nobody is going to buy that. The mere existence of this gun, this type of gun, this ghost gun, is even evasive of the law.
The name of it is a ghost gun.
It is intrinsic to the name, yes.
Right? It's a ghost gun. There's no serial number. There's no tracking of it. It's a ghost.
It just troubles me.
Look, here's my big thing. The city of Philadelphia has a lot of issues. I think that this is, personally me speaking, obviously. I don't think that their way that they prosecute crimes is necessarily effective at all. I don't think it's effective even remotely. I think that the city of Philadelphia has had a lot of issues when it came to how they treated policing, especially post 2020, and police officers are struggling doing their jobs. And the crime rate in Philly is really, really high, and it's spilling over into all of the areas surrounding Philly as well, right? There's a lot of problems going on. And this is just another thing that is putting the lives of innocent people in the city of Philadelphia and police officers and everybody else in jeopardy. Because there is a reason why somebody is a person not to possess a firearm. There's a reason for that, because that person has a history of being a violent criminal. And I think you could be as pro Second Amendment as John Wayne himself. I don't think you want somebody who has a track record of using these weapons for violence to be able to purchase a gun that has zero tracking at all to it, purposefully. Or someone that is known to sell guns or known to alter guns as a whole to be able to get a gun like this. I don't think it's that controversial to say that at the very, very least, they should just be held to the same standard as Smith & Wesson or any other gun manufacturer you want, or Glock or whomever else. Remington, you name it. They all have to follow the same rules. Polymer 80 should be no exception. Okay, this was a build-it-yourself. Well, guess what? If Smith & Wesson came out with a build-it-yourself gun, they should have to put a serial number on it too. Like, it's not... I just don't think it's that outlandish. I think the city of Philadelphia has a fair case in here, and we'll see what happens in this lawsuit. Now, there's been other lawsuits and the courts are a little bit split on it, so it's probably going to make its way to the Supreme Court at some point, and we'll see what happens there.
I want to say, I think my last piece on this is, I've never said this before, but good on Philadelphia for leading the charge on an issue like this and making this a priority for the city. And like I said, I think that there is a legitimate national security concern that could be articulated very well in the legal, atmosphere to make the case that there should be some serious repercussions for Polymer 80, and that we should know who has purchased these guns in the past. I think that is very valuable and important information as we are looking into where these guns end up. If 570 something of them have ended up in possession of the city of Philadelphia via their police department, I want to know who had them before that, because clearly they were taken away for a reason, to your point. And are these people buying these guns again? Is this one of those things where, you know, let's say, obviously you could buy it again. If you get picked up by a cop and you have a ghost gun on you and they take it, they throw you in jail for, you know, however many months, you come out, you buy a new one, and nobody would ever know. Polymer 80 is clearly not asking any questions. Somebody needs to ask the questions. Somebody needs to know who's in possession of these ghost guns, because since they've been produced for so long without serial numbers, we have no way of knowing. And I think it's tremendously important to know who possesses these weapons, where they are, and if they are in violation of any of these, you know, protections that prevent certain people from possessing weapons, so that if we haven't gotten them, we can go and get them because they're in possession of a weapon and they shouldn't be. So there's a lot of things that need to come down the pipe from this case, and I'll double down on it. This might be the second and only time I'll ever say this, but good on Philadelphia for bringing a solid case about a really important issue. And I agree with you. I think this is ultimately going to end up being an issue of national deliberation, and we'll see. We'll see what goes on. I'm curious as to what kind of restitution the city of Philadelphia is looking for, if it's in the way of regulation that comes out after this, if they're seeking some sort of, you know, monetary compensation or whatever it might be. I think it'll be interesting to see how it pans out and what the ultimate decision is, because this is a new age problem and it's going to require a new age solution. So I'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
I think it's a very interesting case.
For sure. And I just want to note, like, to pretend that the city of Philadelphia's issue doesn't have any sort of sway or ripple effect in the state of New Jersey, regardless of what happens in this case. But the idea of ghost guns being in Philadelphia, Camden's not too far, and Jersey is not too far away from Philadelphia. We're right on the border, on the other side of the bridge. So this is affecting the people of New Jersey as well. So
I'll double down on that. Just to prove validity to this, I have a friend who is actually a police officer, a gentleman that I go to the gym with in Camden. And every time I see him, he tells me stories about the amount of either stolen cars or stolen items that they find from Philadelphia in Camden. And it's proof. And he talks about this, how the police units out there struggle with, no pun intended, bridging this very criminal gap that exists between these two cities, and how these criminals have learned to manipulate the issues around jurisdiction to avoid getting caught over certain things like stolen property, weapons, among other things. So there is a tremendous interest for the state of New Jersey in how Philadelphia goes about prosecuting these guns, because I think it would be foolish to suggest that out of the 575 of them that were captured, some of them never existed inside these state lines over here. I think if anybody insinuates or assumes that, it's quite foolish. So there's legitimate interest here.
Yeah, this is not just a Philadelphia issue. And to your point with the stolen cars, I mean, I'm seeing, obviously I can't get into any cases that come across, my desk, even just as an intern, but there are certainly rings of criminal enterprises that steal cars, bring them to New Jersey, sell them, and they just steal throughout Pennsylvania, and they bring them across state lines, Jersey, Maryland, Virginia, wherever, and they sell them there, and they change all of the titles and registration for it. Yeah, for sure. This is not a singular jurisdiction issue. But let's shift over to talking more about the jurisdiction of New Jersey. And go into a bit of more of a positive tone. One of our favorite places, Stephen, in the Garden State is the great city known as Atlantic City. The city on the ocean, the city by the bay. Some call it, I know, San Francisco, but Atlantic City's by a bay too. And that's all I got to say about that.
It's the city of lights.
It's the city of lights, the city that never sleeps. It's the city of
angels. It's all the cities.
It's both the Sin City and the city of angels at once is Atlantic City.
You're not even wrong.
And you know who's over in Atlantic City right now? well, at least at the time of recording, this is Governor Phil Murphy, along with
It's
a
true.
bunch of other governors and First Lady of the United States, Joe Biden. And what are they doing over there in Atlantic City?
So there's actually a really awesome convention happening. It's the annual meeting of what is known as the NGA, the National Governors Association, which our governor, Philip Murphy, happens to be the president of currently. He's been the president of this organization for a year now, and this is the first time, I think, in 30 or so years that the annual meeting, is being held in the Garden State. Interestingly enough, I'll add, he took the stage today, much like you and I do, to Born to Run. So they really leaned in heavy on the Jersey propaganda. Apparently there was, as he came on stage, they played like 3 different Bruce Springsteen songs, and there was all this footage of the Jersey Shore and Ferris wheels and, the boss playing guitar, and like they really went heavy on the Jersey. And I love that over here, because if there's one thing in this world that I love, it's the state of New Jersey. And Governor Murphy seems to be right on line with that. But main point of this is a really interesting association, actually. It's a bipartisan group of a lot of governors. I think 26 or 27 governors attended this year's meeting in New Jersey. And they basically get together, and whoever the chairman is, so again, Phil Murphy, they spend the year coming up with a certain initiative that they present at this annual meeting to the other governors in attendance, and kind of make it like, Governor Murphy's issue that he thinks all of these other governors should see of equal importance to him and take the helm on. And so what he got up today and talked about was something that he said, quote, "This topic transcends party lines. Too many of our young people are struggling right now." And so his chief initiative has been called Strengthening Youth Mental Health. And I think this is such an interesting topic. And they did a tremendous presentation today. There's been a bunch of conferences, independent, I'll almost call them like little breakouts of groups of governors who have gathered over today to talk about this issue and the plan that Phil Murphy has worked on for the past year and presented today, which I'd like to talk a little bit about because I think it's really interesting. So it's called the Governor's Playbook, Strengthening Youth Mental Health. And he has this whole introduction about it where he talks about the importance of mental health. And there's some pretty staggering statistics in here, which he associates to some of it COVID-19 and isolation. But he talks about statistics that I know we have mentioned before on this show, like unprecedented levels of hopelessness in teenage girls. The U.S. suicide rate among 15 to 24-year-olds grew by almost 7% in 2021. That was a huge statistic that they spoke about. And they continue to talk about things like stigmas and the importance of breaking down stigma around mental health to have better conversations. But ultimately, the plan that he put together, this playbook, I'll just read from his website really quick. And this is actually, it's a really comprehensive summary that they go into a lot of detail. There's 4 pillars, and I just want to mention them very briefly so we can talk about them and, get an idea of what Governor Murphy sees as the proper path to addressing this national issue. So the first pillar of the Strengthening Youth Mental Health Initiative is addressing prevention and building resilience, supporting youth with the necessary tools to respond to stressors and challenges, reducing the risk of mental health conditions, and proactively identifying and managing existing conditions. So that's pillar number 1. Pillar number 2, increasing awareness and reducing stigma, promoting the awareness of mental health knowledge and resources, and decreasing the social, self, and structural stigma around youth mental health challenges. Pillar 3 is ensuring access and affordability of quality treatment and care, removing the barriers to care, including unaffordable costs, lack of insurance coverage, and depleted workforce that ensure high-quality trauma-informed and culturally relevant care is accessible to youth in appropriate places, spaces, and timeframes to meet their needs. And then the 4th pillar, he talks about training and supporting caregivers and educators, expanding training and support so that those caring for and interacting with the youth daily have the understanding and tools to identify mental health needs and access the relevant supports. And he goes on to build upon this. And like I said, this is very comprehensive. And he offers 4, he calls them levers for governors, things that these governors who attended and are reading this playbook and are going to participate in the governor's initiative, things that they can do. And he says that the four biggest things that they could do is set an agenda, allocate funding, support legislation, and orchestrate stakeholders who have a vested interest in seeing this mission through and making sure that, you know, you follow through on those four pillars, which we had mentioned. So I want to say, after delivering all this information, I think that this is a great initiative that Governor Murphy chose to take on this past year. And like I said, I've said many times, I think the playbook is very comprehensive. And I think that if he can get even as much of half of these governors on board and really lean in and focus on this, I don't think any of the requests that he made are unreasonable. And I think that he is correct when he says that this is an issue that transcends party lines. And he took the perfect opportunity. He's in a perfect position to address something that affects a lot of people our age. And regardless of other opinions you may have about Governor Murphy, I think that what he did today and the statement that he made and all of the support that he put behind this to make it so comprehensive and so accessible and really simple in a structural way to promote youth mental health is very admirable. And I think he deserves a legitimate round of applause for taking the helm on such an important issue, because I see it every day. I have phone calls with friends every day that struggle with these kinds of things. And to know that there is some sort of acknowledgement, this is something that was, you know, you talk about our parents' generation, it was kind of coy to talk about mental health. People didn't talk about these issues. You didn't cry the way that you cry with your friends now, or, you know, have these issues. And the statistics back these numbers and these things up. So to see our governor taking charge in New Jersey on an issue that affects everybody, I think is a tremendous moment and a hats off moment to Phil Murphy.
I agree that this is important and it's a big deal, and I'm glad that he's doing it, but I am apprehensive to say this is a round of applause and a hats off moment to Governor Murphy, because when you cite the statistics of these increasing rates in 2021, I think it's foolish to forget why these high schoolers and middle schoolers were going through this. And that was because they were being forced to stay at home instead of going to school. And that was all on the governor's initiative. And so I think this is a good thing. I think this is an important thing. And I think it's fair to say, you know, I'm glad that he's putting these initiatives forward. I think they should be joined with an apology and an owning up that a lot of the problem is because of policies that he made to begin with. So it's like, yeah, you get an applause because you know, I don't know, you drove in the tying run of a game, but the only reason you were losing is because you made the error in the field. Not the only reason, but a reason, a major reason. I don't want to take this as a slam. I do think this is a good initiative, and I'm glad that he's doing it, and I'm happy that he's doing it. And he should be, you know, be met with good graces, and we should come together around the initiative. All of that is true. I don't know if we should turn a blind eye to one of the major reasons why we may need this initiative.
I think that's a really fair point that you make. But I teeter on how much validity I'm going to, you know, personally put into that, because it's also not like Governor Murphy was the only one.
No, he wasn't. But there were other governors that did it a different way. And I'm curious to see the rates of depression and anxiety state by state based off of the kids that went to school. And I say I'm curious as if I don't know, but like I know that the mental health issues that the states that were locked down and the education issues and the ease of education and the access to education and the scores and test numbers to all back that up show that the states that weren't locked down have less of this issue. Now, this is an epidemic that is bigger than just that one thing. And that's why I'm all on board for this, right? But you cite statistics from 2021 and these increasing rates from 2021. It's like there's a reason for the massive increase between 2019 and 2021. Yeah, it was going up steadily since the advent of social media. We've talked about this before. But then something happens. I don't know what it is. that there's a skyrocket. Maybe it's the fact that they were all forced at home. Now, that's not to say that this shouldn't be addressed. And, you know, I don't really care who's addressing it. Somebody's addressing it, and that's a good thing. I don't know if I'm going to be giving a standing round of applause for somebody who was among those most ardent for a big factor in this. He didn't start the ball. You know, he didn't start the fire, to quote the great William Joel of the Keys. He didn't start the fire, but, you know, he might have threw a little gasoline on it.
I think overall your point is fair. I think it's a fair point to have, 100%. I do want to get your take on a comment that was made. I think there's two things worth mentioning in tandem with this. The First Lady, Tammy Murphy, she had also put out like a first, you know, woman First Ladies playbook, and hers was to deal with maternal and infant health issues. So similarly as comprehensive. But what I'm curious about is it was a quote that was made by the Hawaii governor, Josh Green. And I just want to get your take on it. He said, quote, "Zip code has tended to be as impactful as genetic code." And they go on to explain that the issues with mental health tend to be happening in areas with the greatest health and poverty issues as well. So he equates the mental health crisis similarly with the economic inequality crisis, and basically suggests that the higher the poverty level, the more likely there is to be these mental health crises also.
The single greatest factor in determining somebody's outcome in life is their zip code. It's the single greatest factor in determining somebody's outcome in life. I think that's spot on. I think it's like deep psychologically, like these people are starting from a lower rung on the ladder. They are going to have these types of issues more likely than not. And in a lot of those communities too, there's this push of like, you can't show the emotions. You have to be tough. You have to be better than that. And I think that it's a spot on analysis of the issue. I think the best way to fix these types of things and these socioeconomic conditions are things like, you know, opening up school choice and stuff like that. And that's another issue for another day, and another point that, you know, Phil Murphy's a lot of talk on this, but it seems like the big policies that will actually make a difference in these people's lives, he's apprehensive on. He talks about needing, you know, the levers of funding and legislation and stakeholders. And then one of those big pieces of legislation is school choice. And that's, you know, maybe not so much anymore. Access and affordability of care, again, you know, but training and supporting caregivers, and then you fire a lot of them. Like, these are my points. Heed your own advice. I think that the Hawaiian governor's point is spot on. It's 100% correct. And zip code is, if we want to fight the battle of bringing everybody in our country up to a fair starting point, an equal opportunity, we need to start the battle of the zip code, I guess we could call it. And that's making sure that just because you have one zip code and the guy next to you, you know, or the guy in the school next to you is a different zip code, that doesn't mean you should be in worse off conditions necessarily because of that zip code. We live in, you know, the wealthiest country on earth. New Jersey is one of the great states, especially in education. This shouldn't be an issue.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. And when I read that comment, I suspected that you would have exactly that response. And I felt that it was very important to mention it because this is not the first time that we've discussed the matter of a zip code and this concept of a zip code war. either. So I think all in all, my final point on this is I'll be upfront. Before this conference happened today, I had no idea that Murphy was the chairman of this currently. But after reading about it, after learning about it, after taking the time to work through this plan and see, the input from other governors like, from Hawaii, I couldn't be happier with the things that have come out of this. Granted, like you said, there are some very valid points to be made about, how Murphy and other governors and legislators may have contributed to this issue that they're addressing. I think using this opportunity in this forum that is highly bipartisan, that is largely, communal, and seems like all of these governors want to work together on whatever the chairman or chairwoman has put forth. I think this is a great cause. And I think that there's been plenty of wonderful contributions that make me hopeful that this is something that'll get addressed in a more serious manner afterwards, since this has been brought up at this convention.
I completely agree, Stephen. And this, like, my critique is not at all a knock on the cause. And I will say this, I've been on the record of saying this, and I've said this to you, Stephen, in private. If Phil Murphy is good at one thing, man, that man is a good hype guy. He can rally the troops. He can rally a crowd. And if anything, he's rallying the troops around an important issue, and I can give props for that. He is a good hype man. He's the guy that can get you going, get you motivated. I have to give him credit where credit is due. And I am glad that it is in this area and this position is a place that he's fighting.
Couldn't have said it better. How could you not get hype when a guy with a great smile comes on to Born to Run? And that's my case for watching Bridging the Gap. We do it every day. We do it every. I don't know.
That's a great point. That's a great point. Well, Stephen, we're out of time today. We got some more stories for next week that we kind of pushed out. A nice fun story. We can wait for next week though. So stay tuned for that. That's your little teaser. But with that, this has been another episode of Bridging the Gap here on the Jersey First TV network and on NJ. I'm AJ Malillo.
And I'm Stephen Rambolo.
Have a great week, everyone. We'll talk to you soon.